Some books remind us that life's biggest lessons aren't learned in moments of certainty, but in the unsettled spaces where we're asked and sometimes forced to adapt. They show us how loss and change can become teachers if we're willing to listen. Now, I've got an author I'd like you to meet whose poetry traces a nomadic life, capturing the ways displacement and resilience shape our understanding of home, belonging, and what it means to stay human. Stick around. You'll not only find out how, you'll learn more about the book and the writing journey this author took to create it.
Welcome to A Book Finds You podcast. This week's guest is Rachel Hicks. Join us as she shares the inspiration behind her book, along with her writing process, routines, and challenges. And now, here's your host, best-selling author, Rob Jollis.
Today's guest, Rachel E. Hicks, is the author of Accumulated Lessons in Displacement, her debut book of poetry. Her poetry, fiction, and essays have appeared in Presence, The Baltimore Review, Front Porch Republic, Fair Forward, and other journals. Rachel is the assistant editor at Mars Hill Audio. Happy to have you with us and welcome to the show, Rachel.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Mars Hill Audio. We were talking about audio right before we went on.
Yes, we were.
Now I know why. Okay. Pleasure to have you here. So let's dive right in, talk about your book. And I normally ask how a book found you, but I think we'll start with that one. And I ask it because not just the name of the show, because we don't find it, it finds us. So how did that particular book find you?
So for me, this was about a decade-long experience of working on my poems, working on drafts, thinking some were maybe done, some were not maybe done, and then just kind of seeing as I got this bulk of them together, which ones seemed to speak to each other. At first, my thought was that this was going to be pretty strictly focusing on just cross-cultural life. I have lived in 7 different countries, have a very nomadic experience. And so I thought, well, that's what this will be about, just all these snippets and stories, trying to get at what's human in each of those situations and what connects us even across cultures. But as I was working on it and as I started to put these together, I realized that it was kind of taking me to some kind of deeper places with that. Again, more on that focus of what makes us truly human, what connects us as humans. And so originally, while I was thinking about displacement and moving and how that might go along with, for example, refugee stories, immigrant stories, as someone who has been hosted as a guest in many other countries, and knowing what it feels like to need to find a friend, to need to have someone who shows you the way around, where things are, how to live in that society. And so that's always had my radar up for that. And so anyway, I just found it going deeper, and especially thinking about losses related to moving, not finding home, having to leave home, all the goodbyes associated with a kind of a nomadic life. And so that's kind of where I went with it. It gets a little metaphysical in some poems. And other ones are just
we'll climb into all that. I'm just curious, really coming from a weird angle here, but do you keep a journal?
Yes.
You notice, and the reason why I said that is because I know my journal people a little bit, and I'm part of the family of journalists, journal people. When you start writing a journal, what you don't realize is you begin to welcome these stray thoughts. You welcome what you thought you were going to write, but it diverted. And I think when people don't do journals, they're a little bit more contained. And I applaud the fact. I think that's why everyone should write a journal, because I think some of our best writing is when we go, wait a minute. I didn't have this in my agenda or outline, but look where I'm going. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely what happened with me. And I even keep a little mini one in my purse. So when these thoughts will come, I can just jot it down and then see where it takes me later.
Yeah. All right. Extra credit for a mini journal. Now you got me beat. I don't have a mini journal. I do have a tape recorder,
I
though.
can't remember things otherwise. So I gotta have somewhere to write it down.
Right. I use my little micro cassette in my iPhone. So that's my mini journal when I'm on the road. All right. Your poems reflect a life lived across many countries. How has this movement and displacement shaped your sense of identity and your belonging?
Yeah, that's something I think I'm still working through. So people like me who grew up in a culture different from their parents' culture, are called third culture kids. So you take your original sort of parent and family culture, you take the culture or cultures that you live in, which is different, and then that creates a sort of a third culture.
Mm.
There's a whole bunch of literature out there. If people are interested, they can look up third culture kids. But what that means is that you don't fully belong anywhere, and yet you also feel like you can adapt anywhere. So it's a really kind of a strange mix. And so, for example, I came from being overseas to college in the US, and I had only lived in the US first grade and ninth grade. And here I am in college. My parents are still overseas. They work in international schools, and I'm having to adjust. I look very American. I sound American. I have visited America many times. I have family in America. However, I have an experience of being kind of a hidden immigrant. I don't know how to do certain types of just setting up, like how do I set up my bank account? How do I, where do I go to do this or that? And even something as simple as vending machines used to freak me out when
Wow.
it's like I just like, well, which coins does it take? And I don't want to look stupid walking up to this thing. So there's all these ways in which I look the part, but I inside feel different. And so yeah, so I think it's just that is one aspect as well as just a sense of home, like where is home? And for a lot of times I said, well, home is kind of where just family is because it's, we've moved so much that there's not one particular place. I will say, I have actually lived in Baltimore now longer than I've lived anywhere, which kind of blows my mind. But we've been here since 2013 with my family, and I actually really enjoy being somewhere long enough to bump into people I know in stores or on the street and have that familiarity and learn more about that place at a deeper level. So for me, that's actually been really special to spend this long in one place. And Baltimore, it's very multicultural, which for me is important. We actually live in the Patterson Park Highland Town area of town right now. We just moved on here from a different part of the city, and my husband and I are loving the international vibe down here. Yeah, so it suits us pretty well.
Yeah. Look, you moved from one place to another. You didn't even include that you do so much long-term travel that you didn't realize that you actually have moved since you've been to Baltimore. You're
Yes.
just not counting it. Okay.
Yeah. Literally just this summer when the book came out, I was in the
Right.
midst of my own displacement. So that
There
was
you
really
go.
ironic.
Well, what's interesting about you is that you've developed a level of empathy that I'm not sure could be taught.
Mhm.
You had to experience it.
Mhm.
And so it's funny as we grow, so many things that we think are irrelevant of our past
Yeah.
become critical building blocks.
Mhm.
But while we're going through it, it's like this couldn't possibly contribute in any way.
Yeah.
It brings you to another customer. It introduces you to your husband. It brings you to a community.
Yeah.
But everything seems to weave together and, almost in a spiritual sense when
Yeah.
you really look at it.
Yeah. It feels like nothing is fully wasted. Like
Right.
something will always come of it, even the hard things, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And it helps prepare us for the hard things.
Mhm.
Well, you describe your work as more than travel reflections. What
Mhm.
do you hope readers carry with them after sitting with these poems?
Well, even my favorite poets, I don't love every single one of their poems,
Mhm.
and that's okay. So I don't expect that whoever reads this book will love every single one of the poems or find that they all speak to them. However, for me, I've kind of developed a concept of what I call poems to live by.
Mhm.
And whenever I come across a poem that really changes the way I view the world, helps me see something in a new light, or just, gets you right here, those are the ones that I feel like I need to hang on to that. I need to reread it, possibly even memorize it, although I feel like I'm not great with that. I want to do better with memorizing poems just so that I have them stuck in my head. But so my hope is that people, even people who aren't used to reading poetry, will find one or two poems in here that feel like a poem they can live by, that they want to sit with and just kind of return to over and over. And I do, when I write my work, I really do try to make my poems accessible enough to people who aren't used to reading poetry. And I think storytelling in the poems is one of the ways that happens. I think something as simple as using good grammar and sentence structure within your poems, even if you're dividing up the lines in interesting ways, that actually helps people follow a thread that maybe aren't used to reading poems. So that is my hope. It's just something that gives somebody a new perspective, something that gives them a little bit of hope. I'll give you an example. I have a couple of poems in there about my daughter who, when she was in high school, She went through a few years of really some pretty devastating health issues. And she was in and out of the hospital. She was bedridden. And it was a really tough time for us all. So I have a few poems in there about that. And again, there's poems that are dealing with just sitting in the hurt of it, but that's also productive, I think, when you're able to acknowledge it, name those losses, name those hurts, but then also finding the hope and the joy in it. There were some funny moments that in the midst of our pain that we were able to share. There was ways that she became kind of a deeper and more beautiful person even through it, even though I would never wished on her what she went through. It's done a good work in her over time. And so that's not the case. I know in every situation of sadness or sorrow that people go through, I'm not saying, hey, everybody find your joy in all those hard things, but I'm just saying they are there more than we think they are. And I think that those things can be redeemed and some beauty can come from them. And that helps us survive. It helps us live and keep going when we know that that is a possibility, if not maybe even a promise that some good can come from
Yeah.
it.
Well, look, I really applaud you, Rachel, because, I remember 16 years ago, I had a publicist say, you got to write blogs.
Mhm.
And I thought, why does anybody want to hear about the
Mhm.
fact that I had a tuna sandwich yesterday? I mean, I just found blogs to be, it's a story with no real message.
Mhm.
Uh, and so I set about sort of trying to do it my own way. I refer to them as blarticles to make,
Okay.
as I actually created a
That's a great
trademark
word.
on it. There's a legal definition that says there's got to be something in it for the
Mhm.
reader, a
Mhm.
message, something. I don't just tell
Yeah.
a story. And
Mhm.
I tell this story because,
Yeah.
let me know why. And I think in your poems, what I'm hearing is there's poetry, and that's beautiful.
Mhm.
But yours go a little bit deeper. There's messages in these poems. There's depth in these poems, and you're writing a particle,
I like that.
a poem. But that's my kind of poem that
Mhm.
says, I'm not just going to tell you a story.
Mhm.
There's going to be more. There's a moral to it. There's a message to it.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
just find that, really wonderful. It's
Mhm.
your first book, right?
Yeah, it's my first
Look
book.
how fast
Yeah.
you got going.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your writing a little bit.
Okay.
How do you come up with, I guess
Mhm.
life is presenting them to you,
Mhm.
but just finalize that thought in terms
Yeah.
of how you come up with each poem. For fiction writers, for
Mhm.
I'm a
Mhm.
business writer,
Yeah.
we don't go through that. We
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
got one story, we're trying to pull that thread through.
Yeah.
You've got lots of little ones.
Yeah. So sometimes it's just an image. It's an image of something I see. It's an image of something I remember. And it just niggles at me and I can't let it go until I start to puzzle it out. Sometimes when I feel like I can't dive right into a poem form, I will journal. I'll do what I call a free write, where I'll just start writing about that thing. And 95% of what I'm writing there turns out to just be dirt. It's not great. But in that, I'll find my way into the heart of something, and usually there'll be a phrase, there'll be a line or two, and then that becomes the scaffolding for the poem. That becomes kind of the heart of it and where I can build from there. Sometimes just a line or phrase will pop into my head, and I honestly don't even know what it means until I start messing with it a little bit. It might be, oh, I just like the sound of that. I'm going to play with that a little bit. But sometimes, again, it's a thought that the more often than not, it's a thought that I feel like I have to go down that rabbit hole a bit. And why is this, why does this itch need to be scratched?
Right.
That's kind of how it comes for me. But I would say journaling is a big part of it.
Just going to say,
Yeah.
I was loading up with I'm smelling those journal lessons
Yeah.
again of
Yeah.
giving yourself permission
Hmm.
to go where the mind goes. Hmm,
Yeah. And
I-
I will say, reading other people's work, whether it's I read fiction, I read nonfiction and essays, I read, obviously poetry. And so sometimes I'll want to write something in response to something I read. It'll be whether it's something that jars a thought that I want to follow. And sometimes if I think that might be a poem and it turns out, no, there's so much more to say here that actually needs to be an essay or that needs to be something else. So yeah, but it usually starts with the thought, the idea, I want to see where it goes, and then I see what form does that need to take. That's kind of how it works for me.
does the end in mind ever creep in? Do you ever start and have a fixation
No,
on the end and then figure
no,
out how do
I
I get
sometimes
there?
wish it would because that feels like it would be a bit of a gift and a little easier. I know we're talking about my poetry book. I have been working off and on for years on a novel that won't all let me go, so I will finish it at some point. However, that feels just huge and unwieldy to me. And I keep following it little by little by little, and I don't know where it's going yet. So we circle back in a few years, maybe we'll
Right.
finish by
To
then.
be continued. How's that book coming
Yeah,
along?
yeah. My kids
Sure.
keep asking me that, and
Okay.
I'm like, well,
All
it's
right, just
still
remember
there.
the motto of most authors, and don't be offended, authors, if this isn't your motto, but a lot of times done is perfect,
Yes.
and
Yep.
or we get stuck
Yeah.
searching and chasing
Yeah.
perfection.
Hmm.
And I call upon your journal skills to give yourself permission to explore a little bit, even on the book side of this
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I need to do that.
It'll get there.
It'll get there.
Remember, when you're most lost in the journal is when the good stuff comes out.
That's right. That's
All
right.
right. We'll keep an eye on that. All right, let's talk
Yep.
about your writing routine a little bit.
Okay.
Do you have a writing routine? If so, what does that look like?
So it definitely just changes depending on the season of life that I'm in. So right now, before I had my current job, I was working sometimes full time, sometimes part time doing freelance work. So I could say yes to things, I could say no to things. And that gave me more flexibility in my writing. Right now, I'm with my daughter in college, I am working full time,
Right.
which I actually love my job and that's great, but it does leave me less time to work on my writing. So at the moment, I usually plan on two kind of block periods during the week where I can work. It's usually one weeknight where we either grab some food or my husband makes something. I get right to it and I just work the whole evening on whatever it is that I want to work on. And usually that's at home. Sometimes I will go out somewhere if I feel like I just need a change of pace. But I have my daughter's room, which is a nice, pleasant place to be, and she's not here. So I get to commandeer her room when she's not here and enjoy that space. And it feels different to me. It's a different headspace for me being in there. And then recently, what I've been doing is my husband's been busy on Saturday mornings, and so that actually is a good time for me. Just get up, get my coffee, roll right into doing some writing. So I try to protect those two times. If I can fit more in, I do. And of course, when ideas are coming, I'm jotting stuff down and saving it for later. But right now, it's these kind of two blocks of time that I try to protect in my week.
Right. That's a little unusual, but very common to me. I'm the first book I ever wrote. I never wrote one word anywhere except in the air because I'm a professional speaker. I was traveling,
Mhm.
probably put in about 125,000 miles that year. I just did it all up in the air,
Yeah,
but that was my protected
that works.
space.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if this happens to you because I knew of certain trips. It's almost like the mind began nesting and
Yeah.
thinking, like, if you're writing on Wednesday, let's say,
Mhm.
Tuesday, it's already
Oh,
going,
yeah.
don't forget
Yes.
that. We begin to just not. So all of a sudden, Wednesday comes around, it's like, bam,
Yeah, I'm ready to
we're
hit it.
ready.
Yep. Yeah,
We've
that's
been there.
exactly what it is for me, which I'm grateful for that because it would be rough to show up and be like, all right, here I am.
Yeah. Call me Ishmael. Now what?
Yeah, now what?
What's the most
Yeah.
challenging part of the writing process for you?
So for me right now, I would say I'm really been trying to be a student of the craft of poetry, even though I'm not in an official program right now. I do have my eye on an MFA down the road because of stuff I want to learn, but I'm really trying to learn a lot more about craft. I'm trying to learn about form and meter and how those are used and why those are used and when they're used and play around with that a little bit. So for me, I think it's challenging when I'm forcing myself into certain molds and trying them out. But I've noticed that it also, that sort of channeling sharpens things for me. It sharpens my word choice. It sharpens my ear as I'm playing with a line and I'm hearing it. I'm doing a lot more out loud. And so that's been challenging, but it's been good.
Mm.
But it also just, I feel like it's also revealing to me where my weaknesses are more in my work. And so that's a good thing, but it's also a hard thing. And I think the other thing is just knowing when something's done. Um, I mean, because of the size of poems, you can just keep nitpicking those things and just always be tweaking and changing some little thing. And I just feel like at some point you have to be like, I think this is done. And
Right.
it never completely feels done, or
Right.
rarely. But yeah, I think just knowing when to stop and be like, this needs to rest itself now. And usually what I'll do is I'll put it aside for a good while, like a couple months even, and then I'll come back to it. And if I still feel like, yeah, it can stand, then I'll let it. I'll let it go. If something's really bothering me, I'll keep working on it.
Yeah. All right, let's stay with that. We put it aside for a few months. Have you ever fully abandoned a poem? Just said, I'm sorry,
Yes.
this will
Yes.
never be.
Yes. But what I do with those is I keep them in a folder that hopefully nobody will ever see. And I usually keep them because there's one or two words or phrases or there's something in them that I might want to harvest for something else down the road. So that's why I will keep some of those things. But yeah, there are definitely things I abandon. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe I think some of your other guests have maybe said this before too, but this idea that sometimes you abandon something, you think it's forever, you end up coming back to it way later. And you're like, actually, now I'm ready to tackle this. And I was just speaking to someone this summer related to the fiction. I think 10 years ago, when I first started jotting ideas for this book I was working on, I don't think I was even the person that can maybe work on that book then. And maybe I am now. I feel like I'm ready to take this deeper stab at it because I'm different and I've learned more. And so I think sometimes it's not just the subject matter, but it's the writer themselves needs to just let things settle and stew for a little while and become the person that can then write that thing.
Right.
Yeah.
My wife was an artist and been about at least 25 years now. She was an art teacher, now an artist. I only mention it because I am the protector of art. 98% of the time she'll figure it out. But every now and then I hear the words, I'm just ripping this one up. And I go running in there and
Good for you.
protect it. Give it to me. Give it to
Yes.
me. It's no, I'll tear it to shreds. And I get it out of there and I hide it somewhere. And I bring it back in a couple months because that's the writer in me that says, we get very frustrated, but tomorrow is another day,
Yeah, yeah.
or next month's another day. But
Mhm.
distance is interesting. Once you destroy something,
Yeah.
you can't get it back.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I hope everyone who's listening, who's ever been up against it and said, there's just no way this is going to come to fruition, you might be right, but just put it in a drawer somewhere and
Yeah.
leave it alone.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that you protect the art like
Yeah,
that. That's so
I
great.
protect. And sometimes, she does finish it, or
Hmm.
it does, like what you just said. Looking at it a few months later gives her an idea to change it in a certain way. I
Yeah.
mean, dramatically. She's a collage
Hmm.
artist, so she can actually do that. She can pull
Hmm.
paper off,
Yeah.
pull colors out.
Hmm.
But as writers, it's a lot easier than pulling
Hmm.
paper off.
Hmm.
So I am a firm believer that it was written for a reason.
Yeah.
And it may be lost right now,
Hmm.
but it shouldn't be abandoned.
Yeah.
That's me. That's me.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, here's your favorite topic: publishing and marketing. Everyone loves that one.
Everyone.
All right. It's your first shot at it now.
Yes.
So you're kind of new at this. When did the book come out?
So the book came out basically beginning of July, like last day of June,
All right.
beginning of
So we're
July.
pretty new here.
I will say it came out a little quicker than I thought it was going to come out. I thought we had till September, October, so I thought I'd be through the move and not in the
Yeah.
midst of that chaos.
Right.
So that's okay. We're
Yeah.
rolling with it.
Well, the good news is there was a time, back in like the 90s
Mhm.
where you really had a window. It was a pretty
Mhm.
short
Mhm.
window. We really didn't have much of an Amazon. I don't think
Mhm.
Amazon was even around. It
Mhm.
was bookstore. It was, ISBN number, cross your
Mhm.
fingers. Everybody wanted to come out right around Thanksgiving because most
Oh yeah.
books were sold from Thanksgiving to Christmas.
Mhm.
I believe
Mhm.
that month for a while outsold the other 11
Oh my goodness.
together.
Wow.
So that's how hot you wanted to be
Mhm.
right there. Because if you missed the window,
Mhm.
you missed.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Books can get hot a year later, 2 years
Mhm.
later. Somebody influential just picking it up and saying
Mhm.
something, boom, we're back on the radar. So you got
Yeah.
plenty of time. Don't worry
Mhm.
about that. But what are some of you
Yeah.
got to fight? This is, I know you're a mom. You fight for your children. We got
Yeah.
to fight for our books. So
Mhm.
what's the game plan? How are you going to fight for this book?
Well, I am actually having a launch party
Yeah.
in about a week and a half. So October 11th, I'm having and it is open to the public. So if anybody hears this in enough time, October 11th here in Highland Town, look it up online. It's on the Be More Arts calendar. It'll be from 2 to 4 p.m. on that Saturday afternoon. So and I'm just throwing it open to every single person I know that's in the area, region, friends, family, people in my network, everybody.
Yeah.
And so there's that.
Rachel,
Yeah.
let's put a pin in that
Mhm.
just for a second. Hold
Yeah.
everything else. Let's do the launch well,
Okay.
okay? So all
Okay.
I want to talk, I promise we'll get it the other part.
Sure.
The launch.
The launch.
I am instructing you. I'm looking at Rachel very seriously right now. If you could,
Okay. I'm
I know it's
feeling
a
it.
can you feel it? One eye is closed. I'm really giving it like eye. I want 50 people in that room.
I would
I
love
want
that.
50 people in that room because that is your core. That is your
Hmm.
tribe. They will
Yeah.
fight for you. And ready for this?
Hmm.
I don't want you to give one person a book. All right.
Okay.
Give them, bring in some hors d'oeuvres, bring in some
Yeah, we're
appetizers.
doing that.
All
We're doing
right. Give
that.
them a couple drinks if they need
It's a
to. And
party.
tell them, everybody eating well, you're drinking well. That's
Mhm.
great. Okay. But the reason why is if they buy your book, then when they write the review on the book, and maybe we can get 50 reviews,
That'd be
okay?
great.
Well, we're going to have some spouses. So let's say 30 reviews. I want 30 verified reviews on
Mhm,
that
mhm,
book. And every book you hand out to your Aunt Trish
mhm.
is lovely. But when she writes that review, it's not verified.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want you to think of your own Amazon habits when you
Mhm.
see an unverified review and
Yeah,
the credibility you give it or lack of.
good.
So we can give them other things at the launch party. You know what I mean? Give them a
But not the
pen,
book. Yeah,
give
yeah.
them a book for a friend.
Yeah,
You know,
there you go.
but I've had a bunch of launch parties. I
Mhm,
am such a stickler on this now that I have
mhm.
like a Willy Wonka gold ticket invitation and your invitation is the book. That's the
Nice,
ticket into this party.
nice.
And then we're going to give you all kinds of wonderful
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
But I'm
yeah.
doing that because I want those
Mhm.
reviews. They're important. So I
Nice.
know it's coming up real soon. You're
Yeah,
probably the die has been
that's all
cast,
good.
but try not to give
Yeah,
out too many books and
that's a good
explain to
idea.
people I'm not being cheap. I'll be happy to give you
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
But you got to buy one. Give
Mhm.
this one to the person that isn't at the party
Yeah,
who I
yeah.
can't see. Make
Hmm.
sense?
That's great. That's
All
great.
right. All right. Now back to the
Filing that
show and
away.
Rachel takes over again. So
Yeah.
there's the launch party and what
There's the
else?
launch party. I have an email list of people that I'm sending stuff out to. I'm also working with, because of my background and because of this third culture kid thing I told you about, I have a lot of connections with international schools. And so I'm actually reaching out to a lot of their English departments, their creative writing clubs, and to do some different talks and things like that related to poetry, related to living overseas and the cross-cultural stuff and the where is home and all of that. So working on that. I You're gonna give me that look. I am not a huge social media person. I have been off Facebook since end of 2022,
You're allowed to
and
be.
I am also under no illusions that, a poetry book will hit the top of the bestseller list. So it's okay. I feel like the book is in all the ways that I'm working on it and through my network, I feel like it'll find the people it needs to find. And I'm going to just keep rolling it out. I'm going to keep looking for opportunities to show up in person, to give readings, to give talks, talk to book clubs. I have a pretty broad network and it's in a lot of places. So I feel like I'm putting the hustle in there, but I am not doing a whole lot on social media. This might have to change down the road if
All
I
right.
go for a different type of book,
All right.
fiction, whatever.
Rachel's
We'll
getting the
see.
eye again. There
We'll
it
see.
is.
There
Okay.
it
Now
is.
look, here's the social media eye. It's
Okay.
the other eye if you haven't noticed. But don't be on Facebook.
Yeah.
Don't pick any three that you don't want to be on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just pick one.
Hmm.
Okay. Mine, because remember, I'm a business author. LinkedIn. That's
Yeah.
where you'll find me. I
Yeah.
put all my effort. I don't really care about Facebook. I don't.
Hmm.
Substack sounds very interesting.
Hmm.
There's some authors who swear
Yeah.
by it.
Hmm.
I'd rather just focus on one.
Yeah.
So, what I'm asking you to do is figure out if there's anything in that list, and maybe you'll be a Substack person
Mhm.
because
Yeah, I've thought about Substack. Yeah.
yeah, because so the people that are following you have a place to go and
Yeah.
hear about you. Do you have a website for the
Yeah.
book? All
Yeah.
right. Well, there you go. Okay, I feel better. Okay,
Yeah.
so because we want some place where people can connect with you,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
I'm telling you Substack, and I'm not a big Substack guy,
Hmm.
but I would just say find one,
Hmm.
okay? And I'm going to appeal to you this way: if your daughter was coming to you for advice
Yeah.
and said, "Here's what I'm doing, but I don't like social media a lot,"
Hmm.
and you know there's a game to be played, would
Hmm.
you look at her and say, "Well, then, good for you, sweetheart. Don't you do any social media?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm coming at you with let's just pick one,
Hmm.
and let's crawl before we walk and walk before we run." And you might just like it, but
Yeah.
I'm not an Instagram guy. I mean,
Hmm.
it doesn't fit me.
Yeah.
So maybe we find one that better fits you. All right. So we're
Yeah.
not shutting the door on it. We're
We're not
still
shutting the
thinking
door.
about it.
We're not shutting the
All
door.
right. My eye is normal again. All right. Last question for you. I always hope, and I know we do because I hear from some people that will email me, people that have dreamt of writing a book on
Hmm.
poetry or fiction or business, whatever it is. They've
Hmm.
dreamt of being called an author.
Hmm.
What advice would you give somebody who's listening right now and been thinking about it for a little too long right now?
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
I would say for me, what was the most inspirational when I was in that exact spot of, I think I want to take this more seriously. I think I want to dive in more deeply. It was actually getting around a literary community. So it was actually getting involved, going to events, meeting people, going to workshops, going to conferences. That actually is what, for me personally, really told me, yes, you can do this. it fed that flame of, this is really something I want to do. This isn't just a, a whim. And so for me, it was actually getting into the literary community and also just learning all that I could learn about following my interests with that, not just learning. I mean, I started by learning about, I thought I was going to do a lot of magazine writing, and I started working on that. And I realized this does not feel like me. This does not feel like my voice. This doesn't feel like the kind of things I want to work on. And so I abandoned that. And I think that's okay. I still do write essays now and then when I feel like the stuff I'm thinking about really needs to be in that form, and I'll figure out where to send it. But for me, it was, what is the interest? What's the fire? Follow that. And then get yourself in those communities where you can rub shoulders with people. And I think a lot of times we might go into initially just thinking of it as networking, but for me, I quickly found it was more actually just feeding the fire. It was feeding the flame. I'm learning more. I can do this. I'm getting the tools of the trade. I'm learning the craft. I'm around people who are encouraging me. And so that's really valuable. And then the networking side of things does really help down the road as you start to do more and publish more. But it was that initial, if you're in that spot where you're like, I think I want to be a writer. I think I want to go down this road. It's just put your actual body in those places where you're going to start to feel like a writer, and you're going to be around writers, and because we could do this online all we want, and it's great. And there's more online than we could ever hope to absorb, but there's so much good stuff online. But I do think actually getting physically involved and going to things, for me, that's what did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really wise advice. And we do have a lot of resources in this area.
Yeah, we really do.
Right. And, for some people, it's just an accountability partner.
Mm-hmm.
And for others, it isn't. It's just they're intimidated by the size of the project. So let's get into a meetup or the Writers Center or the Mellon Writers Association. Let's find a program and a group of people. And, I think I wish people would just take a step and say, let's not quit. Let's not quit in our beds. Let's not quit thinking about it. Let's quit. Let's get to the starting line. Yeah. And if you want to quit there, go ahead. But I'll bet you don't. It's hard to quit when you're at the line.
That's right. That's right.
Quit when you're in the think about it stage.
Yeah.
So I like that. Getting around some people makes sense.
I did get involved with a poetry critique group early on here when we moved here, which really did help. The gals that I worked with were just, first of all, I mean, it was good accountability. It just kept me writing and it kept me showing up. But it did make me a better writer too. I mean, I learned from them, and even just in giving them feedback, I learned more about the process. So I think in person, getting into a community, even if it's small, even if it's one or two other people, something that makes you begin to feel like I'm actually taking these steps, I'm doing this.
Yeah. Look for podcasting. I was told do a podcast. There's I found a meetup that meets once a month, and I've been in that meetup for 6 years now.
That's great.
And I went from the new guy who said I don't know how to spell podcast to now I've got eyes on me going, then what do we do? Yeah. But it was my dad said you put one foot in front of the other. But I've learned from it's a collection of people, some very grizzled, some new, some thinking about it, and that's the kind of writers groups that are out there. It's not all accomplished novelists, but you'll have one or two in there. And they'll have one or two marketing people, maybe a web person, all these social media person, all sorts
and hopefully
of
they're generous, with their time and their advice and talent and all of that.
They actually are, because the person who knows how to build a website doesn't necessarily know how to write a poem. Okay. And there is this, in the groups I've been in and visited, there's a lot of trade-off of skills. So very good advice. All right. How do people get a hold of you? And I want to hear that website while we're at it.
RachelEHicks.com.
There you go.
Very easy. RachelEHicks.com. It has all the information about all my writing. It has a lot of my published work links. It's got everything about the book that you need to know. Yeah, that's where you can find me right now.
Good. And Rachel is spelled just the way you think. Hicks is spelled just the way you think. Normally I have to always swoop in and go, now... Marvin has 3 A's in that name or whatever, but okay, just the way it sounds. So drop by and take a look. Maybe take a look if you're thinking about putting a website together and look how an author's doing it. So good for you.
And come to the party if you're available.
Yeah. All right. Give me the information on that again.
October,
we're going to try to hustle this one on the air. So
October 11th, 2 to 4 p.m. in Highland Town at Abbott Memorial Church in their fellowship hall. We're having the party.
Oh,
in
I
the
would
party.
love if a few people who are listening to the show would tell them you listen to the show, and that's why you're there.
you go.
And you're going to get a free
You're
appetizer
gonna get free
of some
some.
sort.
Yeah.
Yes. Although I killed the vibe on the party. No one's getting books anymore. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Bring a book in, and Rachel will sign it for you. Been just wonderful getting to know you, hearing about your book. I wish you nothing but success. Welcome to the club. One book, and you're an author. 2 books or more, and you're a writer. So let's get the second one going.
All right. I'm working on it already.
Join the team. But thank you so much. It's been a pleasure
much.
talking to you.
You as well.
All right, folks. We'll do it again as well as we can next time. Until then, stay safe.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's guest author, we'd love you to rate, review, and share this episode with others. If you'd like more information on today's guest or the Maryland Writers Association, please visit our website at marylandwriters.org. You can also hear a brief history of the Maryland Writers Association by listening to episode 0.